Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, here's Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
Time flies when you're having fun. I have been informed, MJ, by our fine producer, Jim Alejandro, who keeps track of all of this stuff. But today, here on this Wednesday, April 17th, it is our 100th episode of Cards Cover 2.
Man, you're right. Time flies when you're having fun.
Absolutely. I mean,
100
that was quick.
Well, let's hope for 500,000 more.
And they said it wouldn't last past 50.
Who said that?
I don't know.
Now, I showed you a picture earlier, and I showed Jimmy Alejandro, our producer. You remember when Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points?
Yeah. Showed up the picture.
Yeah, I showed you the picture. I was going to, maybe Photoshop and put us in there, But I was talking to Mark Dalton with the Arizona Cardinals, and he said, I think it was the PR guy, actually just got a piece of paper with a marker, 100, and he had him hold it, and he took a picture. Now, that's not a selfie. He probably said, I'll send you the picture in a week when we can develop it. But 100 points, 100 shows.
Yes.
Do you remember Larry Fitzgerald's 100th touchdown? Do you know who it came against?
No, I'm not.
I'm going to go against a division team.
Nope.
San Francisco?
No.
It was a Monday Night Football game against the New England Patriots.
Oh,
remember that play he made in the corner of the end zone in typical Fitz fashion? Over the shoulder, over the head, he looked back, and it was just the perfect catch to land on 100. It wasn't just your routine post route where he catches it with ease. It was the degree of difficulty was crazy, and it was very fitting for Fitz's 100th TD.
And we haven't, the Cardinals haven't played against the Patriots a ton. Obviously, a couple of years ago to opener, no Tom Brady in that game. So that's a nice little milestone against the Patriots.
That was at Sun Devil Stadium, correct?
No, 100th touchdown.
Oh, 100th. I'm thinking
no, that was
catch.
remember the Monday night game against.
That's
I want to say it was 2016. Yeah, I believe it was our.
That's the game that you were referring to. MJ.
September.
Yeah.
Yep.
No Brady.
Yep.
Yeah,
no
yeah,
Gronk.
exactly. Yep.
And we could just
no
stop
Logan
right
Mankins.
there. We'll just stop right there. Yeah, that was
Jimmy G.
Yeah. And
Anyways,
exactly. How about that? How about we take off?
I think B-Train said that had an issue with the whole season, right? Supposedly one game. But it is important to start your season on a good note, right?
Yes,
okay. And
absolutely.
hopefully that happens this year.
And let's start our 100th show on a good note as we take off on this Wednesday. Let you know what's ahead on the show. The head coach-quarterback relationship, always important. Kliff Kingsbury and Josh Rosen are well on their way into developing theirs. Did the offseason affect what the Cardinals might do in the draft? We'll hear from Steve Keim. Nick Bosa, the Ohio State standout, is the next and last prospect we'll preview here on the show. And, of course, your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2. Hashtag CardsCover2 using the number 2 to get involved in the show here this afternoon. We do it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. First things first, though, the news of the day and the schedule is out. Or at least it will be out a little bit later on today. A little bit later. Just a tease. 5 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. And, of course, we'll be back with you. A special edition of Cards Cover 2 at 5 o'clock or thereabouts.
So our 100th show doesn't get to live very long. It'll be show 101 here
How about
in a few
that?
hours.
Yeah. That was quick.
Yeah.
No shelf life on this one.
No, he could have celebrated that tomorrow and then going into the Friday show.
There is no show Friday.
Oh, that's right. We're off.
Yeah. Programming note.
Next week. No, but listen, we all know who they're playing.
Yes.
Okay, now it's a matter of when, where, what time, national games, where they start the season. So it's going to be interesting. Again, we'll be here back at 5 o'clock, and we'll unveil it as soon as they put out the release.
Here are the teams that the Cardinals will host at State Farm Stadium. Falcons, Panthers, Steelers, Browns, Lions, and, of course, the NFC West. They will travel to New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Baltimore, Cincinnati, the New York Giants, and, of course, the NFC West to figure out how many East Coast trips there are, or if the Cardinals decide maybe they stay back as they've done in the past. When does the bye week come up? And then, of course, as you mentioned, whatever the primetime games, you're guaranteed one. That's the Thursday night. But is there a Monday night game, a Sunday night game? A year ago, the Cardinals just had the one primetime affair. So, again, a special edition of Cards Cover 2 coming your way at 5 o'clock here when the schedule will be officially unveiled for the 2019 regular season. Yesterday on the Kingsbury Chronicle podcast, Coach was asked about the schedule and what perhaps he is most interested in seeing.
We don't control any of that, so it's, you take what they give you and you get ready to go. But it's always exciting for the fans to see, where your games line up and which, Sunday night or Monday night games are on that schedule.
It's a little bit different for him because in college you have, at least for your non-conference, you have a little bit more control on setting that. And then, of course, your conference opponents. But it is, and, of course, it's fewer games in college than the NFL. But I think he'll change his mind. And if you ask him that question a year or two from now, he'll have a better idea. And we much rather have our bye at this point. I'd rather be home here. If we have to go on the road, then let's do it this month. But right now, everything is brand new.
Yeah, and really you got to break it down in
quarters. Yeah, the first, whether you go September, October, November, December, and figure out what those first four, second, third, and fourth four. You all right?
I'm all right.
You're a little emotional on this schedule release.
No, I got my white on. I'm ready. I'm not choked up. But
you're a little emotional.
I'm not emotional.
Yeah, he's going to break that on schedule, and
you teased us though. You told you had the schedule.
Well, it's out.
I know.
A little bit later on.
Yes. 5 o'clock.
Yes, 5 o'clock. Quick roster note while we're on the subject of the Cardinals. They swapped offensive linemen over the past week, and yesterday they added Brant Weiss, who had played in the Alliance of American Football. In fact, had played for the Hotshots and was actually with the Cardinals last offseason before getting released. He is now on the roster, and Jeremiah Potassi has been released, another one of those Alliance of American Football players. So a new offensive lineman, Weiss, 6'6", 297, and I think you'll see a lot of this not only in the coming weeks, but coming months, especially that bottom half of the roster, because we know Keim loves to churn it to try to figure out to get better, even if it is that right now the 85th, 88th, 90th man on the roster.
Yeah, and in the addition of J.R. Sweezy and Marcus Gilbert, looks like they're going to go more with the veteran route. Justin Pugh, we'll see where he lines up, could be a left guard. Mason, Cole, and Shipley, and then you got your left tackle and Humphrey. So you can kind of get an idea right now who the top 8 are. Now, there is competition. Cardinals certainly draft a lineman in the second or third round, maybe a guy that can play guard and tackle. But that's more for depth, and that's more for the future. So I would say right now the top 3 reserves would be A.Q. Shipley, could play center and guard. Max Garcia can play possibly both guard spots. And then Corey Cunningham's your swing tackle. He could play left and right tackle. But again, you want to continue to add to that. But right now, it looks like they're going to have a veteran group. And when I say that, Mason Cole has 1 year under his belt.
Just getting started here on a Wednesday edition of Cards Cover 2 as we come to you from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, broadcasting in our Bose QC35s. Go to Bose.com for more information. A reminder, if you ever miss a show, you can download as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or TuneIn. And don't forget, all of your favorite Cardinal podcasts can be found at azcardinals.com/podcast. Don't forget, a special Cards Cover 2 coming up at 5 for the schedule release, and then that will be the final show of this week. We'll resume on Monday. Now, we talked about it during yesterday's special edition of Cards Cover 2 when we held the pre-draft press conference. General Manager Steve Keim and head coach Kliff Kingsbury. The most interesting part of those 20-so minutes, at least for me, were the comments about Josh Rosen. Not much was said about the draft. No decision has been made. They're still weighing their options. The 120 board hasn't even been set. But with regards to Rosen, how he's handled all of this, you even go back to maybe even late December, January, but it really started to ramp up in February once Kyler Murray said, yes, I'm committed to football. How Rosen has handled all of this talk. Here's Kingsbury, and then you'll hear from Keim about their second-year quarterback.
He's been phenomenal. I mean, he's couldn't have been better, honestly. First one to show up, engaging into it, very sharp, as everybody knows, and can't say enough good things about my interactions with Josh so far.
We've had good dialogue, but he is a pro's pro. And the one thing that I've appreciated about him the most since we drafted him, the kid has an unbelievable amount of mental toughness. You saw that last year as he took a beating, and we went through the injuries we went through up front. Physical toughness, mental toughness, Josh Rosen has it all.
The physical toughness is one thing. The mental toughness, though, for a lot of people is much harder, and I wouldn't fault Rosen or any player thrust into this position. He didn't ask for it, although if he had played better, but that's beside the point. There's always going to be this talk, and I've always said, put yourself in their position. I certainly would love to know where I stood within an organization or a company, in this respects a team, yet you haven't heard one thing from Rosen himself publicly, social media, or anywhere else, and he's been here, and by all accounts, he's the first one here, one of the last to leave, and going through as if he is the guy, and he is until otherwise known.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not surprised that he showed up, the first day. I think the team and the organization was expecting that. He is under contract, and there's nothing right now that they can do make decision-wise. I mean, obviously you don't want to tip your hand, or in this case, you still want to go through your due diligence, what you're going to do with that first overall pick. But it's encouraging. The fact is that, they're still installing their playbook, and he's here learning from day one, and that can only go a long way if he happens to be the quarterback. So from that sense, and I agree with Steve, I mean, what he went through last year, not a lot of guys would have been successful, and a lot of guys would have went in the tank or start pointing the finger. He was the opposite. He took responsibility. He knew he could have played better, but they just didn't have the weapons, the protection. The running game wasn't there. And anytime you're firing coordinators during the season, and nothing against Leftwich, he tried to do something different. Maybe we saw a little bit of flashes, maybe in that Green Bay game, but for the most part, he went through a lot. And the fact that he's motivated to get this thing right, I give him a lot of credit.
Well, you bring up the playbook, and that's something else that Kingsbury brought up, and the question was asked, how much of the offense has Kingsbury been able to teach or show Rosen? And Kingsbury was open and honest. It's like, we're into week 2 of installs. We're meeting for an hour and a half, and it's Rosen and the rest of the quarterbacks. But, the quote during the pre-draft press conference from Kingsbury was, I think he was familiar to some of what we do in college there at UCLA, so I think he will pick it up quick. Afterwards, during his podcast, Kingsbury was asked just how much of the playbook he can install right now.
I think you can get a ton installed, but until you go out there and execute on the grass, you're just talking through things. And so I think our guys have a good feel, offensively, defensively, and obviously special teams. There's some carryover, what we're looking for. But until next week when we get on the grass and they kind of see it live and in action, I think that's when it'll start clicking.
And the reference there to next week is the voluntary veteran mini camp that new teams that hire new head coaches in the offseason are allowed to have. So we know about the mandatory mini camp in June, but if you hire a new head coach, there is a voluntary veteran mini camp, and that takes place next week, in which, you can get on the field, and it's not just classroom work or meeting room work. You can actually kind of, hey, this is what we told you in the classroom. Now we'll actually be able to show you on the field.
Yeah, listen, I know that we look at, the Kyle Murray, fascination from a standpoint. He played in an air raid offense, and he makes the most sense. But, I look at Josh. We know he's a deep thinker. He's a learner. With the right protection, the right running game, the right weapons, he could be successful in this offense also. So I'm encouraged that he's here. He's learning, and we'll just have to wait and see. But, Josh is a smart guy, and he's willing to put the work in. And to me, when you're willing to do that, then you're going to have good results.
Did it surprise you at all to hear Kingsbury say that, the meetings are taking place, and we all know that, but being as open as he was, hey, 90 minutes a day with Rosen and the other quarterbacks, and we're going through it because, all this background noise is what it is, but here we are in the present, and Rosen is our quarterback.
Yeah, it's status quo right now. He technically is under contract, and you got a coach who's here. You know, when you make your 10 draft picks, if they keep all of them, then the guys get here and you coach who you have. But right now, you got to coach the guys you have.
It makes sense hearing you say that. Yet at the same time, I know what the narrative is outside this building is like that would be a waste of time because everyone. I won't say everyone, but there is a large group out there that believes 100% that this is a done deal. Kyler Murray will be the number 1 overall pick, and if that is the case, then why are you spending all this time with Josh Rosen?
Well, I mean, Josh Rosen's possibly interviewing for 31 other teams. I mean, if he didn't show up and he was pouting and it's the opposite. Now, again, it's voluntary, so he didn't have to. He chose to show up, but yeah, I mean, you got to go about your business. I mean, yeah, I'm sure it's been difficult. We haven't heard anything from him, so you kind of, what they say, block out the noise. I'm sure it's difficult, but when he gets in this building, he's a Cardinal, and that's right now. You know, he's just got to show that he's worthy of keeping, and they got to make the decision at the end of the day.
I think it speaks volumes for him as a person, and I look at it as, you know, in our previous lifetimes, you know, we've had a number of different ownership changes working in media, but radio specifically, and that's something that neither one of us can control. You go about your day-to-day business until you get that tap on the shoulder saying, hey, you know what, we're going to change this. You need you to do X, Y, and Z as opposed to A, B, and C. And I think that's what's happening here. All of those players, and it's not just Rosen, because this can happen to any player at any point. You know what, we thank you for your service, or you know what, we're making a change, we're going this direction. But until that happens, you have to plan as if this is our team moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten that tap on the shoulder a few times. I mean, I thought things were going well, and then get a tap on the shoulder last April, and here we are now. So you can't control it. I mean, we all have bosses in life. You would think you drafted a quarterback last year, but you've also got a new head coach and a new system. So I understand why they're going through their due diligence.
We know that Rosen is a hard worker, and he is one of the first in the building. The question, though, to Kingsbury on his podcast yesterday is, has Rosen beaten him to the facility?
I don't know where he parks, so I wouldn't know. But I know he's been there plenty early, and he's kind of the last one to leave. And so he takes it serious, and he approaches it the right way, and it's been awesome working with him.
The Kingsbury Chronicle podcast with co-host Paul Calvisi and Lisa Matthews every other Tuesday at 3 p.m. on Facebook, and you can catch up on past episodes by going to azcardinals.com/podcast. All right, let's turn to the draft, and we are now just 8 days away.
With the 86th pick in the 2015 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select David Johnson, running back, Northern Iowa.
I don't know if it's because it was number 7 on his jersey, but David Johnson looks skinny.
Oh, he's bulked up.
I mean, that you compare number 7 at Northern Iowa versus number 31 and David Johnson with the Cardinals. That was.
But David didn't come in as like a 21-year-old.
No, that's true.
He was a little bit older.
Yeah, but after that first year in the NFL, realize that, hey, you know what? I need to get a lot stronger and bigger to endure a longer season and the pounding that I'm going to take.
And just seeing what he's been able to do on videos. I mean, he posts a lot of videos. You could just see the strength is back. He's probably stronger now. He doesn't have to deal with any kind of injuries in the offseason. He didn't have to deal with that last year. Unfortunately, just wasn't used the right way. There weren't any lanes for him to run through. So, yeah, I mean, and listen, we all know the story. The Cardinals showed us. They were on the clock, and they had Amir Abdul on the phone, and the Lions called, and good for them. And we got Marcus Golden and then David Johnson. Now, Golden obviously is with another team, but he was a great locker room guy. He played well when he was healthy, and I wish him a lot of luck.
And that's when you hear General Manager Steve Keim talk about don't fall in love with these prospects until they're on your team, because they're in that episode of All or Nothing. It was a very disappointed-looking general manager when that happened, and that's something that he tells everyone, don't fall in love, because you don't want to be in that position where I want this guy, and all of a sudden someone jumps in front of you, or it's the pick ahead of you, and all of a sudden that guy that you wanted is going to play somewhere else.
Well, you know, Russell Wilson had his press conference today, and he said he wants to play 20 years, so that would be 43. I hope he doesn't play that long. But anyways, he's earned it. John Snyder said that they were getting antsy in the second round, and they decided to take Bobby Wagner.
Okay.
And then
solid draft pick.
And then him and Pete Carroll, for the entire time until they were back on the clock, they were nervous. And then they got Russell Wilson in the third round. So they were considering taking Wilson in the second round, but they had just signed Matt Flynn and Bobby Wagner. Let's be honest, you gave Matt Flynn money, but Bobby Wagner's turned out to be a great player. And here you get Russell Wilson in the third round. Now, speaking of the Seahawks, they only have 4 draft picks coming up next week.
Cardinals with 10.
4. So that tells me trade back, trade back, trade back.
And by the way, as we continue here talking about the draft, azcardinals.com continues its the 1-at-1 series, looking back at the last 30 number 1 overall selections and the players' impact on the team and the league. Since our show on Monday, Darren Urban and Kyle Odegaard revisited the 2012 and 23 top picks. Quarterback Andrew Luck in 2012 with the Colts. Offensive tackle Eric Fisher in 2013 with the Chiefs, who I had actually forgotten about because those just aren't selections that stick out in your mind. But that year in 2013, Fisher's selection ended a 4-year run of quarterbacks being drafted number 1, and that's what you typically see is either a quarterback 9 times out of 10, and if it's not a quarterback, then it's a defensive player. But sometimes you will have that tackle, Jake Long, not too long ago in 2008 when we've been revisiting these last 30 years, number 1 overall picks. But Luck, certainly quality selection.
Oh, I mean, that's when you say we got a franchise quarterback. Everyone else is hoping that guy turns out the franchise quarterback, but he obviously showed it in school. He stayed his extra year. He's healthy now. I think they've done a great job with Chris Ballard and that roster. They got a ton of cap space. They've done a really good job in the draft getting Nelson from Quentin Nelson. Thank you. In the 06th overall, they drafted another lineman in the second round, so they've done a good job. Evan Boehm there is now as a backup, so that was a no-brainer. But he still got to perform. And maybe 18 months ago they were concerned, is this guy ever going to play again? But I think that was the year we had 3 tackles go in the top 4. And Eric Fisher was going to play right tackle. You normally don't draft a.
You mean in 2013?
Yeah, I think Lane Johnson was in that. I think
that's right. Yes,
there was 3 out of the top 4 were actually offensive linemen, and you don't draft a left tackle at number 1 or a right tackle in this case. But he turned out to be a really good player. They got Schwartz on the right side and Fisher's on the left side. Now, for a long time they had Brandon Albert, so he did not come in and play left tackle. But we had 3 of the top 4. Were offensive tackles.
It's been a fun series that both Darren and Kyle have been working on. You can go back and revisit all of those on azcardinals.com. Don't forget the Cardinals 2019 draft party is happening 1 week from tomorrow. It is April 25th. The location, the Great Lawn outside State Farm Stadium. Admission, parking are free. I would suggest you get there early. Of course, the Cardinals are on the clock with the first pick overall. For more information, go to azcardinals.com/draft party. Got another announcement with regards to the draft. Another former Cardinals player is involved in announcing this year's draft picks. Carlos Dansby, he of the 3 different stints with the Arizona Cardinals, will announce the team's second-round selection, which is pick number 33. Dansby was selection number 33 back in 2004. So Carlos Dansby will handle the second-round pick. And, of course, we've already announced the Larry Centers will be announcing the team's third-round pick.
And if we have Carlos on, he would say this is huge. I love Carlos. Just a smile. And when I haven't seen him since he stopped playing here, and I know he tried out with Cincinnati and Buffalo. I don't know if he's ever going to retire, but maybe when the phone's not ringing. But he is in such great shape. He looks younger. I mean, you watched him eating in the locker room.
He was younger when he was here. Yeah,
I know.
He's got his own little Tupperware, little
chicken
container,
and broccoli. Now, clearly, they got a cafeteria, so he doesn't have to do that. But he was a stickler when it came to his meal. Kept himself in great shape. And if you want to mention that draft, we got to go back to Denny Green.
That's right. 2004, Larry Fitzgerald, first round. Carlos Dansby, second round. Darnell Dockett was in that class, and
Antonio
Smith, the linebacker. So yeah, that was part of the foundation that draft class that led to the Super Bowl appearance a few years later.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can hit any better than that. And the fact that, Larry was obviously Denny's guy, and there was quarterbacks on the board, but hey, he was going to ride it out with Josh McCown. He believed in Josh, and they decided to take Larry. But that draft right there, that's going to be hard to top.
Dansby, the 40-20 club member, 40 sacks, 20 interceptions.
It was funny. Darren Urban at Cards Chatter on Twitter put out a tweet giving that news that Dansby would be at the draft announcing one of the picks. And I have to give credit to one of the Twitter users at Razor1801. He had a play off of Carlos coming back 3 different times to play for the Cardinals. He said he will probably leave to go announce for another team, then actually come back and announce for the 4th round, leave to announce for another team, and then come back to announce the 7th round.
I remember when
that's pretty
damn good. Yeah, that's classic. That's witty. I remember when they called him the last time. It was like 2 minutes into free agency, and Steve said, "You want to come home? Yeah, let's go." I mean, you got to negotiate. Obviously, they probably talked to his agent. I want to say it was Todd France at the time, but Steve said it was a quick call.
Yeah, and he obviously had a bucket list to host the Big Red Rage, so that was the only thing out there. So he came back and he did a heck of a job.
That was the one thing remaining on his list of things to do. Yeah, I wonder where he ranks hosting the co-host the Big Red Rage along with the 40-20 Club and Super Bowl run.
Oh, he loved it. He loved it.
Oh, he was well liked in the locker room. The thing is, though, he never went to a Pro Bowl, and because numbers wise, you can put him in there.
Yes, they stack up, but he doesn't have
Urlacher,
the postseason
Look
honors.
at the numbers. Urlacher, Ray Lewis. I mean, you're talking about Hall of Famers, and I think he has Hall of Fame numbers. Unfortunately, he just doesn't have the championships, or in this case, the Pro Bowls. And I think the Pro Bowl at this point in time is probably overrated. But when you show somebody's got 4 or 5 Pro Bowls, it adds to the conversation. But the 40-20 Club, and how many did he drop?
That's true. Yeah, he joke about that. He has about a half a dozen drops every single year. Otherwise, he might have had 40 interceptions.
Oh, at least 6 to 10. I mean, right in his hands.
Now, we'll continue on here, but I got this. Dansby and centers, do they pull a Deuce Latui and really amp up that draft announcement?
Can you see Dansby doing the haka like Deuce did?
No, just straightforward.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
That's what I would do. The main thing is you got to make sure you get the name right.
Well, pronounce it right.
Right,
yes.
because
someone's sitting either, with their family or in a
like
big party
Joe
waiting
Smith.
for this name to be called, and you're sitting there, taking forever.
And it's going to be there forever.
Yeah, that's true.
I think Carlos adds the word Bird Gang in there somewhere.
Welcome to the Bird Gang. Yeah.
With a little signature
he may
Carlos
do that.
chuckle.
Yeah, they might walk up onto the stage flapping his arms.
Birdman.
That should be a lot of fun.
You won't meet a nicer guy.
No. 2nd round pick, don't miss it. Number 33 overall, Carlos Dansby will have that announcement. And then the first pick of the 3rd round will be Larry Centers. As we continue talking draft here and going back to that pre-draft press conference on Tuesday with Keim and Kingsbury, I'm going to take Keim at his word. They have not made a decision on the number 1 pick overall. They might have an idea. They might know what direction they're leaning towards. But right now, no decision. And to quote Kingsbury, again from his podcast, nobody will know until we turn that card in.
I believe that.
So you got 8 days to continue whether, but see, things tend to leak either the day before, the day of, or an hour or two. So I'll be curious if maybe not a complete 100% confirmation that this is going to be the pick, but all of a sudden you'll get the expected to, or I'm hearing they're leaning. But that's been going on since February.
Again, there's no leaks coming out of here.
No, I know.
So let's be honest. I mean, it's going to come down to what, 3-4 players?
I'm going to say 3 players.
Unless you trade down.
Correct.
Right. So, I mean, once they set the board, somebody has to be at the top. And then somebody's got to be 2 and 3. And at that point, at that point, those discussions already take place. There's no second guessing. We're going to sleep on this. Okay, you do that now. So you're not, there's no mix up. This is what we're doing. We stick to it. And then the phone's going to be ringing. What's going to take to get that first overall pick? So everyone's going to speculate. And, ESPN and the NFL Network were told they can't tip their picks. But you remember Woj last year when the NBA draft was going on?
I'm hearing,
Yeah.
and it became a running joke.
Like,
they're expected to.
Don't be surprised if Nick Bosa ends up in the desert.
Yeah, he had a lot of fun with it, and everyone else did too.
Right.
But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so, and they're not allowed to show him on the phone anymore. So to me, and I keep saying it, it's going to be riveting television. It's going to be the reality show at best. I know people watch their own reality shows. There's nothing like sports. You don't know the outcome.
April 25th, first round, 5 o'clock. Cardinals on the clock, as they've been on the clock for a while now. The question, though, getting back to that pre-draft press conference that you asked to Keim, is whether what the Cardinals have done already so far in the offseason, might that affect maybe not the number one pick overall, but what they do throughout the draft.
I think it was important to be aggressive, again, through the wire claims and through free agency, to give us this opportunity to have some flexibility where there weren't positions that were an absolute need. That, again, that's the tough part of this business. It's natural that you can sort of stray towards positions of needs, what gets you in trouble. As long as those players are in a very similar category grade-wise, then it can be a discussion. But if a player and another player, if there's a significant gap, you have to take the best player available, because I say it once, again and again, that your needs in May are always changing. So what we need in October, November will be different from what we needed this spring. But you can't have enough good football players, and you can't have enough depth.
Now, between free agency, trades, waiver claims, the Cardinals, by my count, have added 10 new starters and a number of rotation players. The 10 starters for me, and yes, I'm going to count Larry Fitzgerald because he was a free agent. Rodney Gunter, free agent, 2 expected starters. Robert Alford, Charles Clay, a corner and a tight end that were added before the free agency period began, the normal March free agency period. And then in free agency, J.R. Sweezy, Darius Philon, Jordan Hicks, Terrell Suggs. They acquired Marcus Gilbert. And I'll go back, they claimed DJ Swearinger at the end of December before the 2018 season ended. So those are my 10 starters. And then, of course, you can play around. Brooks Reed was in there, but whether he starts or not might depend on, where they're lining up defensively. And
Max Garcia, once he's healthy,
Yeah.
could be a rotation guy, provides great depth at both guard spots. Tanner Vallejo, he's more of an undersized linebacker.
Tremaine Brock, Josh Shaw,
Tremaine
depending
Brock,
who might wind up
yeah.
as a slot corner.
True.
But-
but 10 starters.
But now you've got, yes, it's best player, and you've always said best player, but there might be a hint
Slight
of
need.
need. But the only need that I see, real need, is wide receiver.
Right. Now, again, depending on what they do with the first overall pick, that's not going to affect what they do. Well, if they take a defensive lineman, then that doesn't become a need in the round 2. But let's be honest, they added Kevin White. They've added a couple other receivers. Farrell Cooper was a late addition, maybe more of a special teams player. Everything you're seeing, and it means absolutely nothing, but you're only seeing possibly 1 or 2 wide receivers come off the board in the first round. I think only 1 running back. I think we could see a run on 3 tight ends, maybe 5 to 6 linemen, and everything else is going to be defense. So if you're there at 33 and you got 3 receivers that you like, or one of those offensive linemen are there, because Gilbert's on the last year of his deal, Humphrey's got to stay healthy. Sweezy's
Garcia's on a 1-year deal.
1-year deal. So to me, wide receiver is a need. But if you stick to your board, you're going to get a quality player there or offensive lineman. So, yes, they filled a lot of needs, and they've added depth, and they've added 10 starters. But it wouldn't surprise me if they took a receiver in the second round or a lineman in the second round. And then what you don't get there, you get in the next round, because you've got to start building for the future on that offensive line. And, again, they're going with the veteran guys now. But a year from now, are we having a conversation on, okay, who's staying and who's going?
And another starter you would think and you would hope and expect is that number 1 overall pick, whether it's Kyler Murray, whether it's Quinnen Williams, whether it's Nick Bosa. And let's focus on Nick Bosa here, because that is the latest and the last of the prospect previews that you were able to do for azcardinals.com. And here's Bosa, who has been pegged as that number 1 overall prospect for a while now, despite him getting hurt at Ohio State, but just what he does when he is healthy, much like his brother down with the Chargers, Joey Bosa, he is certainly one of those unstoppable forces, if you will. And now the question is, can he do what he did against college offensive linemen to NFL offensive linemen.
Yeah, my comp on a guy like Bosa is really Chris Long. Now, Chris Long was the second overall pick that year. I think Jake Long went number 1. Matt Ryan went 3rd. It wasn't a great draft. But you look at Nick Bosa, he's a guy that can set the edge. He's a guy that can tackle in the open field. He can definitely rush the quarterback. And I think the biggest difference, because he's getting more play than Josh Allen, is Josh Allen's a guy that can drop back into coverage. Bosa is going to be a guy in a 3-4. He can play on the outside. He can also play linebacker. So he's a guy that has versatility. And in a perfect system, you would flip him and Chandler at times just based on matchups. So I think he's definitely worthy of the first pick in the draft. I don't think there's any medical issues. According to his father, he's been 100% for a while now. It happened early in his college career. Obviously the ACL, and then he had the hernia operation, the core muscle. I haven't heard anything that he didn't go for a recheck, so I think that's all clear. Now it's just a matter of, is he worthy of the first pick in the draft? Or because he's not going to drop. I don't see him dropping past 3.
No, absolutely
And if
not.
the Niners, they probably would run to the podium. But the Cardinals have an option there. But I think he's definitely the best defensive player in the draft. I know Quentin Williams is getting a lot of love, and rightfully so. They just play 2 different positions. And the Niners are going to have to make a tough choice because they have a lot of interior guys. So do they take Quentin Williams, or do they go Nick Bosa? So it's going to be interesting. But he's not going to be on the board very long. Cardinals got to make a tough decision there because, regardless of what happens offensively, it's going to take some time. Whether Josh is in the system or a rookie quarterback, even though he does have the traits and skill set to play under Kingsbury's offense, this defense could carry their water for the first half of the season until they get it figured out. Not saying they're going to be scoring 3 or 6 points. This offense is going to be up-tempo. They're going to try to score. Obviously, maybe, get the running game going, and then, you're playing, chess and you're playing balanced football. So if you can get a guy like Bosa or Williams, you put that on defense, all of a sudden you may have a top 5 defense.
Yeah, now when we were at the scouting combine in Indianapolis, we had a chance to catch up with Pete Prisco of CBSSports.com, and the question to him was very simple. Who is the number 1 prospect in this year's draft class?
Nick Bosa, and I don't think there's any question about it in my mind. Look, I always put a big premium on the quarterback position. So I kind of tend to sway more to that position and try and elevate them. But in this class, it's all about the edge rushers. And Nick Bosa is the best in this draft class. And if I'm the Arizona Cardinals, I'm picking Nick Bosa. Or I'm getting out of there and getting extra picks and still getting another pass rusher. Because I know all this talk about the quarterback. But come on, give me a break. They got a quarterback. They don't need a quarterback. So go get some pass rushers.
Okay, that's a rare opinion here in Indianapolis because most people we've talked to, you take Kyler Murray and you figure out what to do with Josh Rosen. Why do you feel differently? Is it just because of what you said as far as it's all about attacking the quarterback?
Well, no, it's about solving the quarterback position. But how do you know if you solved the quarterback position yet in Arizona? I mean, look at that team last year. The team they put on the field at the end of the year was one of the worst teams I've ever seen in my life in terms of offensive line play. That team was awful. And David Johnson couldn't do anything. They didn't have any real threats outside. Larry Fitzgerald, look, I love the guy, but, he's a slot receiver now. So go ahead now, kid. Go ahead and make plays. I mean, it was unfair to him. And he had a disastrous situation with the coaching staff and everything else. So, no, it's unfair to judge Josh Rosen on what he did last year. So you're going to give up on Josh Rosen based on what happened last year to go get a 5'10" quarterback? Are you kidding me? It's lunacy to even consider that in my mind.
But there is a debate, and that has been the debate on what you do. Do you do quarterback or do you go defense? And when you're talking about defense, it's Bosa and Quentin Williams who is really starting to show up a lot more as far as in that conversation at number 1 because of just his traits and his athleticism inside and being able to disrupt, which would allow a Chandler Jones, a Terrell Suggs, a Brooks Reed, or whomever on the outside to perhaps maybe get to the quarterback quicker.
Oh, there's no doubt. And we talk about this all the time. We know that, guys, edge rushers are fixated in sacks. I get it. I mean, that's how you get paid. But you're talking about 60 to 65 snaps a game. It's just get them off their mark. If Bosa is getting one-on-one coverage and they're chipping a tight end or a fullback on Jones, well, I'll take my chances with Bosa getting to the quarterback. I'm not saying Williams can't do it from the interior. Listen, what Aaron Donald, Fletcher Cox, and Geno Atkinson have been able to do, and Corey Peters at times, and not put him in that category, he's a little bit older, different body type. But if you get any quarterback, we know that they're in the gun a lot now, but if anybody's under center, and you're able to get that push, all of a sudden you push that quarterback back off his spot. He may not be able to hand the ball off to the running back. He's kind of running for his life. So, yeah, we love to see guys come off the edge, but the quickest distance to the quarterback would be north and south, getting right to him, a straight line. And if he can be disruptive and create double teams, that's going to allow guys like Jordan Hicks and some of these other guys to shoot the gaps and get to the quarterback. The main thing is you want to get him off his spot.
Well, we saw it against the Chargers.
Yeah.
Granted, it was one half, but Robert Kimdichie
Exactly.
absolutely lit up Phillip Rivers. Of course, that was the game in which Rivers basically
7-on-7.
Yeah. But in that first half, there were 2.5 sacks, and then and I'm blanking on the running backs, but
Melvin Gordon.
He knocked Melvin Gordon
He
out
missed
of the
a few
ball
games
game.
after
Yeah.
that.
So it is possible, and of course the Cardinals hope that they see more of that from Kimdichie once he gets healthy. But that is something that guy at a defensive tackle is able to do inside.
That's why, Robert obviously has to be healthy, and we need to judge him when he's healthy. Unfortunately, he just has been lingering the calf, the high ankle sprain. I thought he showed flashes last year, but it's only a small sample. So looking ahead, if they take a lineman in the first round, maybe he's going to have to play well to get that fifth-year option. So you start thinking ahead a little bit. But that doesn't mean they can take a D lineman in the second or third round, because if you take someone in the second or third round, they're likely going to be active on game day, and they're part of the future.
Absolutely. We continue here on the 100th episode of Cardinals Cover 2 as we broadcast from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, and doing so in our Bose QC35s. Go to Bose.com for more on how you get one of these nice headsets like we here have on this show. And of course, don't forget, if you ever miss a show, you can download as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or TuneIn. And you can catch up on all of your favorite Cardinals podcasts at azcardinals.com/podcast. There is upcoming another Cardinals Cover 2 at 5 o'clock around the release of the 2019 regular season schedule. After that, we'll rejoin you on Monday. We are off on this Friday. Before we hear from the Bird Gang, in the next episode of Cardinals Flight Plan comes your way tomorrow, titled Compete Every Day. Episode 5 covers the start of the offseason strength and conditioning program, plus draft preparation. Here's a sneak peek.
Back at it, first day of school. Back like we never left, man. It's time to get it. Worse the first vibes all year.
Now, phase 1 is the first 2 weeks of activities of the offseason strength and conditioning program, limited to strength and conditioning and rehab only. Yes, players can be on the field, but no coaches. And the only interaction between players and coaches occur in the meeting room.
We got a long road ahead. We're going to take it day by day and get better.
I feel a lot faster, a lot more explosive.
Started draft meetings today, so all our scouts are in town. So far, it's been a smooth morning.
Very good length, range, body control, makes play on the ball.
He's capable of getting his hips open from the
Still see him as a first-year starter in the league and has some upside physically.
I'll be up there with Steve and the scouting department going over those prospects.
We'll eventually end up putting about 500 players on our board as draftable prospects, and then we'll create our top 120 board.
Again, it's this Thursday, April 18th, Facebook Watch and YouTube, and you catch up on past episodes by going to azcardinals.com/flight plan.
That was good penmanship.
Well, you got to be able to have someone up there that knows that you can read the writing. It can't be me.
No, me neither. I got chicken scratch.
Let's hear from the Bird Gang. Your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2. Hashtag CardsCover2 using the number 2 to get involved in the show. Let's begin with Twitter. Favorite Cardinal or one of our favorites here on CardsCover2 at Cardinals_31. What do you think of people comparing Quinnen Williams to Aaron Donald? Do you see any similarities other than position?
Unfair. Aaron Donald, I mean, nothing against Williams. If he takes his shirt off, it looks completely different. But it's not a knock on him. To play that position, you got to be beefy, and you're a space eater, and you got to split double teams. I've been going with Geno Atkins and Fletcher Cox. Now, Aaron Donald was the 13th overall pick. If we had to redo that draft, I don't know which quarterbacks went, but he'd be a top 5 pick, probably a top 3 pick. So I don't see the comparisons. I'm going to go Geno Atkins and more Fletcher Cox. And those are good players.
Oh, absolutely. It couldn't go wrong. One other question via Twitter at Ben W. Lane, who added the hashtag British Bird Gang. So we appreciate everyone over there paying attention to us here stateside. Question is, what gives us the best playoff chance? First pick, or could a bumper trade down for multiple picks pave the way for the Cards to jump back into playoff contention? Also, what's the least you take in a trade should you move down?
Well, to me, if you like a player at number one, you take him. I get all this theory, well, trade down, they got a bunch of holes. Listen, if you like a player at number one, you take him. I know that they wouldn't want to go down too far. You don't want to get the third best defensive tackle. You don't want to get the third best defensive end. You don't want to get the third wide receiver. And I'm referring to the second-round pick. So if you like a player, you take him. But here's the question, and I get this all the time. Who's moving up and for which player? Yeah, we hear Oakland, they're in love with Murray. Listen, if you're John Gruden and Mike Mayock, you keep those 3 first-round picks. They got 35 overall. You ride and die with Carr one more year, and then you move to Vegas, and maybe you address the quarterback position next year. But who are you moving up for? San Francisco's not moving up for Nick Bosa. The Jets aren't moving up for Quinnen Williams.
And neither one of those teams needs quarterbacks.
No, exactly. And, you look at, the Broncos, they're at 10. I just don't see teams wanting to move up. I mean, everyone says the Jets want to get out of there, but the Jets have an option for Bosa or Williams or Josh Allen. They missed out on Anthony Barr. So I hear this all the time, but who are you moving up for and what are you giving? Now, I can get the trade chart out for you. I'm not moving down too far. If you like a player, whether it's Bosa, Williams, or Murray, you take them. That's how I feel. I mean, I get this. But we just talked about how well they did in free agency, waiver claims, guys that were street free agents because they got cut before the deadline. I mean, yeah, if you're sitting here saying, okay, you need a corner. We don't have a corner on the roster. Okay, I'm moving down. I'm trying to get Greedy Williams or Brian Murphy. I get that. You need a D tackle, D lineman. I'm moving down to get one of those. But they've added 10 starters. And to me, there's 3 players I would think in play, and I don't know if Josh Allen is or isn't. I just think he's a different player than Williams and Bosa. So if you like one of those players, keep the pick. Don't get cute.
Let's move to Instagram. Hashtag Cards Cover 2. This question, Instagram user at it_s_this_Chris.
Okay.
If we trade down and our first would then become a top 10 pick, would you consider a wide receiver or offensive tackle instead of a defensive player?
At number 10?
Well, if you're 4 through 10, say, or
a wide receiver,
like 7 or 8, 9.
No way. I'm going defense.
What, offensive tackle?
Offensive tackle, but
later?
Maybe in the teens. There's too many great defensive linemen here.
It is so deep.
I would go D-line if you were top 10 if I moved down. I don't see him going down that far, though.
Another draft question. This from user at SlickNickHello.
Okay.
Who are some second-round prospects you are interested in?
Offensive linemen. There's a few there. We could see 5 or 6 go in the first round. Some are projected to be tackles. Some are projected to be guards. I mean, even though you're a tackle in college, teams project you to play guard in the NFL. I think we could see 2 tackles go. I think Jacksonville could be one of the first, maybe Tampa at 5. And so I would look at offensive linemen. I kind of pigeoned myself in a hole or backed myself into a corner when I said offensive tackle, offensive lineman, okay, because Pugh, he's got to play better. You got Sweezy on a 2-year deal. So to me, offensive lineman and wide receiver. And depending on what you do with the first pick, I would put D-line in there too.
Absolutely. Last question from Instagram, and this is perfect with the schedule going to be released a little bit later on. Instagram user at just_Michael_K. What is your dream week 1 matchup if you are Coach Kingsbury?
Him to go against another rookie head coach.
Yeah, that would be my guess too.
And I only have 2 on the schedule, be Freddie Kitchens and then Zach Taylor.
Correct.
So just to kind of ease in. Now, it's the NFL. Nobody's going to feel sorry for anybody else, but I prefer maybe a rookie head coach.
Now, it's not the sexy matchup because I think that would be Cleveland and Baker Mayfield and the history Mayfield has with Kingsbury. But if
But Freddie's been there, and they got a good roster.
But if this is from a first-year head coach coming into the NFL,
there's no gimmies. I don't want to say that.
No, that's true. But you want to at least have more of a level playing field, and you're not playing
I don't want to
the
play
Rams.
I don't want to play Sean Payton in week 1. Now, Sean Payton said we're looking forward to playing all these teams with new coaches, and then on the other side, Kent Summers wrote a story saying, not so fast. Maybe they're going to show you something you haven't seen before.
Or even the Steelers.
Yeah.
A team with a veteran head coach, a veteran
I want to play them when we
quarterback.
And again, this is all personal preference. I want to play them when we get going a little bit.
A little momentum.
Now, if we get them in the first month, great. So we'll use that as a litmus test. But I want to get going a little bit. Maybe play them in week 5 or 6.
And, of course, we'll see what the schedule looks like. Coming up at 5 o'clock here this afternoon, a special edition of Cards Covered 2 at 5 p.m. Show number 101.
101. Football 101. Scheduling 101 coming up at 5 p.m.
We planned that perfectly here.
Yeah, you need to go anywhere else. We're going to have it for you. We'll have graphics for you. We're going to break it down. Hopefully we'll get a chance to go through how many primetime games. We all know a team gets a Thursday night game. Where's the bye week? Where's your opener? Are you on the road or are you at home? All those are factors. And then who are you finishing up with? Normally it's division games late in the year, 16 and 17, so you get a chance to chase somebody in your division or play your spoiler role. And then it's just, do they have back-to-back road games? How does that affect the travel plans, et cetera? So there's a lot of things I look at. And I don't travel, so I won't look for cold weather games.
Good point. Appreciate the Bird Gang sounding off here on this Wednesday. Keep the questions coming. Hashtag Cards Cover 2. Hashtag Cards Cover 2. When we talk about weather, getting just one quick note on the schedule, the only person that we really are concerned about with regards to weather is Chris Melvin, because he's the one down on the field. Paul Calvisi, he can handle it. But
he's got earmuffs on.
Chris Melvin, we worry about
he's
him
got equipment
because
on the sidelines,
if it rains, snows, it's too hot. I mean, we worry about that.
Yeah, true. But, he's usually dressed well. He's been through a few of these himself. So whether he's wearing Cardinal gear, he's got a nice blazer on. C-Mel is going to be fine. Yeah. He's going to be fine.
We're perfect.
I thought you were going to say something about Calvisi. You're worried about him.
Oh, no, I'm not worried about Calvisi. No.
Is
anyone ever worried about Calvisi?
He's got equipment on him. It could be raining in one of these games.
Well, I think all that stuff's waterproof, right, Ohms? Yeah, just water right off the back.
Okay. Easier. You go do it for
there you go. That's right.
He's been on the
roles
sideline.
reverse. We'll see how I feel.
You'd be tired after 2 quarters.
Appreciate everyone's involvement in today's show. Those behind the scenes. Special thanks to Tim Delaney, Jim Alejandro, Devin Henry, and Jackson Sipes. For Mike Jurecki, I'm Craig Grialou. Don't forget, schedule release special edition Cards Cover 2 at 5 o'clock. We'll see you very, very shortly. This has been Cards Cover 2.